Good morning to everybody joining us today. We're happy to have you in this yet another webinar for Leaders of Next. We are going to give some time to the people, for the people to arrive and for latecomers to join us. In the meantime, welcome. We're very happy to see familiar faces and not familiar faces here. And if you can, please let us know in chat where you're connecting from. So we know. On our side, Alfred and I are in Bogota, Colombia. And very eager to start this very important conversation. So welcome. Hi.
I managed to knock over a glass at 8:59. So that's why I ran away from my desk, because it broke when I did it. So I have a towel now on the side of my desk. Everything started falling apart at the same time. And the arm came off of my chair.
Oh, everything at the same time indeed. So Molly, Gary, welcome. We have people from Ohio, Newark, California, San Texas. Right, we're gonna have one more minute and then we're gonna get started to respect the time of all those of you who connected on time. As we go, we will be receiving and accepting people into the room as they come and connect to our conversation.
So Chris, I think because some people have joined, they may not have, the way that the Zoom chat works, they may not be seeing where other people are coming from. So maybe for anybody who's just joined again, if you want to put into chat where you're joining us from. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, in a town called Half Moon Bay. Chris and Alfredo are in Bogota, Colombia.
And we have people joining us from California, Ohio, San Antonio, Texas.
So we're covering some of the globe. Tucson, Arizona. Hey, Steve. Good to see you. I see that we'll be seeing you in Puerto Rico soon. That'll be fun.
Hi, Greg. Good morning.
Good morning. How are we doing, Chris, on time?
I think we have to get started. Right. So Alfred is going to be letting people in as they come, but let's get going. So thank you everybody for joining and welcome. For those of you who do not know Greg, he's the CEO and founder of Solve Next, and he will be our speaker today. He will be having a very important or diving into a very important topic, which is how our now rules or our operating principles might be holding us back from achieving true innovation. And we figured out after we sent the invitation that the title of our webinar might have been a little cryptic. So thank you for joining regardless and for being curious enough to figure out what that might mean. It's true, ensuring strategic governance alignment might have a lot of meanings. So we will discover what that means for us in the upcoming minutes. So thank you for joining us. And G, without further ado, please guide us through it.
All right.
And I will be also talking to you people through chat. So if you have any questions, if you have any remarks, any conversations you want to be having in parallel through chat, I will be guiding you. Please make as many questions as you want, and let's have some fun with what Greg has to show us. So now, yes, G, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks to everybody who's joined, and thanks for those who are going to listen later to the recording, because you know that things sometimes get in the way of our attending. So let me go ahead. Let's see if I can actually get my computer to work properly. All right. So what we're going to cover today, we for those of you who've joined previous calls, you're going to get familiar with this framing. We're looking at what are the big pains or problems that organizations, teams, innovators are confronting as they attempt to systematize or become more methodical about how innovation gets done. And then given the big pain or the problem, what's the big job to be done? And then we're going to take a look at a tool that we have developed for that big job to be done. It's not the only tool, but it's one that we want to share with you. And it'll point to some other tools that some of you who already are familiar with us and use the Next Lab may know of or want to go explore after this conversation. So the big pain and problem that we see is that there's actually just a lack of clear innovation governance. That is, organizations have invested a lot in understanding how to govern the existing organization, what we would call the now or the performance system in their organization, but they haven't necessarily articulated what are the rules and policies and principles that govern how innovation is done. So the big job to be done in that case seems sort of obvious, and that is to actually create a distinct set of operating principles and rules for your performance and innovation systems. That is, the rules that govern how the existing organization operates are not necessarily conducive to innovation. In fact, they're quite often inhibitors of innovation. So we're gonna cover those things today. Let's go into just a deeper dive into that pain and problem that I just described, and how we've heard it expressed by different leaders that we've interacted with. So we're sort of paraphrasing what we've heard from many different leaders here, which is we're often caught between managing the needs of our current operations and the demands of our innovation initiatives. Without clear governance practices for our performance system and innovation system, we're at risk of misaligned strategies, ineffective oversight, and compliance failures. So the problem here that happens when we haven't clearly articulated, as I said, those rules or operating principles and policies that govern innovation, the risk is that there's a disconnect between what innovators are being asked to do and the rule set that they're having to operate under. For those of you who are familiar with this map, this is a diagram, a conceptual model. It looks at how certain are we about the problem, how certain are we about the solution. We call this the certainty map. So if we are uncertain about the problem and uncertain about the solution, that means that we're in that innovation territory. We're in an area where we really need to be focused on exploration, making assumptions, testing our hypotheses, being experimental, discovering, learning, capturing what our learning from investment is, and then gaining knowledge. What we see, in fact, is that typically most of the rules that the organization is operating under have to do with this upper right-hand corner. They're informed by the performance system. That is, that the rule set, the policies, the operating principles that an organization will default to if they have not articulated them for their innovation system is, in fact, the performance system rule set. And the performance system is by nature risk averse, right? It's trying to optimize the performance of the organization, it's trying to minimize friction, it's trying to minimize disruption, whereas an innovation system is quite intentionally exploring and pursuing disruption and hopefully being smart about how it's taking risk on. So you can imagine the tension that starts to exist when the innovators in an organization are being asked to operate under a performance system set of rules. So that just brings us back to that big job to be done. Again, how we're hearing this expressed, or our paraphrasing is we need to ensure that every governance decision, so decisions that are being made about what we're going to work on, what we're not going to work on, how we're going to go about it, how things are going to get funded, what's going to get promoted, what's going to be parked, anything that what's going to help us stay in compliance, what's going to help us avoid running afoul of regulators. All of those decisions need to actually be supportive both of current operations and future operations. And we need to be creating value across multiple dimensions, not just financially, but we need to be thinking about what we call serious capital. That is, how are we governing this in a way that's going to enhance the intellectual capital of our organization, that's going to enhance our reputation capital, our political capital, our social capital, our human capital, as well as our financial. And let's make sure that our now and our next systems work in harmony. Again, one of the consequences of the big pain of the problem of not having a defined set of operating policies or rules or operating principles, to not having a distinct set for our next system and asking our innovators to operate under the now system rule set, is that it creates tension, it creates conflict. So in a lot of organizations, what you'll observe is that the innovators resent the operators and the operators resent the innovators. And what we want to do is make sure that that there's clarity about the rules, that everybody in the organization understands them and understands why they're different, and are happy about the fact that they're working together towards a shared set of objectives and goals. Some will be near term in terms of operations, some will be long term in terms of the innovators. So the big job to be done here is to actually clarify the next rules and the operating principles to ensure that both of these systems can be managed effectively, can be governed effectively, and complement each other, as we just said. So that is the kind of theoretical background that we want to just create here, and backdrop that we want to, or picture we want to paint here. If you have any questions or any thoughts that you want to throw into chat, feel free to. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about how we see that big job to be done fitting into what we call an intelligent innovation system. That is, if we think about what are the components that need to be put in place to, what's that architecture look like, and what are the elements that need to be put in place to run innovation consistently, and to be able to sustain it and to be able to have it actually scale across an organization, across markets, across regions. We want to just sort of show you where this fits in that. So again, some of you may be familiar with this model on the left-hand side of my screen. The top layer where it says next organization, next execution really has to do with the people in the organization who are responsible for innovation. The middle layer is the process layer. What are the actions and the rules and the methods that we're working on? And on the bottom layer, it's what's the platform on top of which the innovation system actually operates. Both, what are those things, the kind of soft elements that align us And then what are the resources that are available to the organization to get the work of innovation done? So what we're focusing on is this little middle part here, this next rules box that has what are our ways of working for innovators? What are the operating principles that govern how the work gets done? What are the policies that are put in place? What's the decision-making criteria that we use for deciding what's going to go in a portfolio, what's going to advance through a discovery-driven development cycle, what's going to not advance, and why? And then what are our rules of engagement? How do we engage among ourselves? How do we engage across the organization? How do the people in the now part of the organization engage with the next and vice versa? And how do we engage with the larger ecosystem? If we start looking at the organization set up in the upper left-hand corner, how do we engage across these different kind of roles and responsibilities that exist? So our focus today is really to talk a little bit about these next operating principles. I see Chris's vote. Thumbs up if you're familiar with it. Thumbs down if you're not familiar with it. So thanks. This model, the next system architecture, we've created to help organizations evaluate how mature are they in terms of their systematic approach to innovation. What of these components are actually present? And we have an innovation readiness assessment tool that allows organizations to evaluate, are we doing these things on an ad hoc basis? And it evaluates all 51 components. Are we, how clear are we about our roles? How clear are we about our responsibilities? Do we actually have an instigation process or a development process? Are we doing portfolio management? Is it ad hoc? Is it established, emerging? Is it established? Is it integrated, or is it being optimized? So we have these sort of 5 levels of maturity. And what we're looking at is just one of 51 components. Now, the good news is, for those of you who want to think about a systematic approach, there are 5 components that actually have outsized impact on the success of an innovation system. All of these matter, but if you focus on these 5, they actually have a ripple effect across all the other components. You can't execute these 5 without starting to consider and develop the others. So you just sort of do them concurrently, if that makes sense. So we talk about this fantastic 5, the operating principles. Defining your next operating principles is one of these 5 components, core components of an innovation system that are critical to success. In addition to the operating principles, we have the next decision criteria, determining, as I said, if and when an opportunity moves forward. Next, development, which is a clear and agreed and understood roadmap for how an innovation moves through an organization, how it gets developed, what the sort of check-in points are, what the gates are, where we're going to challenge the opportunity and decide should it move forward or not. A portfolio management approach, which is what is the total collection of innovation opportunities that we're working on, and where are they currently in the development cycle, and how have they done against the innovation criteria, and are we executing those in a way that's consistent with our operating principles? And then next, funding, which is a unique approach to funding initiatives. It's quite different than the operational side of the organization. It's not an annual budgeting cycle. It's more like a venture fund. It's establishing an innovation fund from which grants are allocated to opportunities as they clear certain thresholds, as defined by that decision criteria on that development path. All of that needs to get codified in a set of rules and policies and operating principles. So that's why we're focusing on this piece today. So the big shift, if we think about what's the transformation that organizations need to go through, we've kind of spoken to this point already, but just to put a finer point on it, we're going from applying the same operating principles, rules, and mindsets from our current operations, what we call our now system, to the innovation initiatives, to our next system. So rather than applying the same operating principles, rules, and mindsets, we're shifting to having a distinct governance strategy that actually says, those people who are working on innovation, those people who are working on what's next for our organization, actually have a different rule set of policies and operating principles that govern how they're going to get their work done. Those who are working in the performance side of the organization know what those are and understand why there's exceptions for them, why it's a different rule set, and they respect each other's rule sets. And those people who are responsible for compliance officers, regulators, lawyers, brand folks, all those people now know clearly, okay, given the nature of this effort, I understand which rule set to apply. Pretty clear. But it's really at the heart of where a lot of the tension comes in the effort in large organizations and medium-sized organizations, in fact, to be successful at sustained innovation efforts. So where is this big job to be done important? At what moments is it important? Again, another mental model to share with you. This is an example of that next development component, one of the Fantastic Five. This is a roadmap, if you will. It looks kind of like the metro map, or in London, like the tube map. And this defines a set of stages and steps which represent a discovery-driven development journey. And every step of this has a set of problems. It has a set of jobs to be done and a set of tools that are useful for getting that work done to advance an innovation opportunity through the next cycle. Now, how we go about doing that work, how teams engage, how teams operate, how they are going to perform that work, needs to be governed by these policies, these rules, and operating principles that we're discussing. And you can imagine that if there's a misalignment, if we're being inhibited by a particular rule or operating policy, operating principle, then it's very difficult to make progress through this. Taking a look at this map where the highlights are, these are formal check-ins. So this S7 represents where the next decision criteria is used, what we call the Super 7, where a board is convened to evaluate whether or not an opportunity will move further on its journey through this discovery-driven development process. And this is a point where those operating principles are reinforced and applied. The rules are enforced and applied, and issues that need to be resolved would get resolved through a formal structure. Hopefully, an organization has articulated these and communicated them and applied them so that the issues are kept to a minimum. But having a method and a mechanism for resolution of issues is incredibly important. As that sort of tension might come up, there's always going to be tension and friction. What we want to do is minimize that and kind of harmonize it in the sense that everybody understands some of that friction is good. It's necessary in change, but we need to have a way of resolving the issues. So that's, again, where those principles come into play. All right. So that's that sort of goes a little bit deeper even into the theoretical piece in terms of the big problem that people are dealing with, the job that needs to be done in terms of articulating these things, and where in the journey does it matter. The short answer is it matters throughout the entire journey, throughout that whole map. There are some specific moments where issue resolution can be done, and it's really helpful to be able to refer to the rule set, to the policies, to the processes, operating principles at that moment, right? So we're going to now shift and take a look at the tool that I'm going to share with you, and we're going to try out here. Many of you who are familiar with Solve Next know that we have something called the Next Lab. The Next Lab contains many what we call drills, activities, or exercises that you can run at given moments to aid the innovation work. We've been developing a set of tools, what we're calling Next tools, that are to help you not only with individual activities, but with small workflows, with a set of activities that need to be done. And in that process, we're starting to develop, for our own understanding and our own help, we're starting to develop some AI assistants that are going to help with that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. The tool that we're going to look at, we call the Next Governor. Think of it as an intelligent innovation coach. So all of these tools that we're going to be sharing with you in the next months, we'll have this kind of coaching capability that's going to be guiding you or giving you some of this assistance as you're trying to do this work. So it's actually just, if you want to understand the technology that is built on top of it, the Next Governor is a GPT. Maybe in chat, if you can, I'll use the thumbs up, thumbs down, if you, like Chris established already. If you're familiar with GPTs, thumbs up. If you're not familiar with GPTs, thumbs down, just to get a sense of that. A GPT, just sort of a very basic description of it is, it's a particular type of AI that's learning from huge amounts, like most AI, vast amounts of data and information. And it's been trained on a specific kind of task. So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And the next governor, in fact, has been trained to coach leaders on how to establish next rules, operating principles, and policies. All right, so it's a very specific GPT for this particular component of the next system. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to jump out of the presentation here and go to my, hopefully I'm going to go to my screen. Let me just take that out of the way. And oh, there's my help for Keynote showing. Okay, Keynote baffles me sometimes in terms of how to get the screen in the right place. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is the next governor. You can see that I have a number of GPTs over here. We're looking at the next governor. And a simple description here is guides leaders in governance and innovation management using structured drills. So I'm gonna show you a couple of capabilities from the conversation starters, and then we'll ask one of you to offer us something that we can input to it so you can see it working on the fly. So the conversation starters that are here, what drills are included in the next governor? For those of you who use the Next Lab, that might be a helpful thing to know, because you can go back to the lab and you can start to use some of those drills. What are the pains and problems are those drills good for? So what are the situations in which I might actually want to use those underlying drills? Can you actually help me define the now and next rules for our organization? And how can we align our operations with future innovations? So those challenges that we were discussing in the opening of this. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on what drills are included in the next governor here. Just use that conversation starter, and it will, if it's cooperating, tell me. So we've got build a board. Build a board is actually a drill for establishing, whoops. Interesting. Try it again. So the build a board, the first drill that was showing is actually a board to help you, gives you guidance on establishing a decision-making body. So who is going to be the board that governs over the innovation work? Make the case is a drill that's used to actually identify and recruit next advocates. Those are people who are working in the now or the operating, the performance system of the organization, who can be really helpful in terms of helping define what are the current operating principles and how can we modify those to enable next. And it's really good to bring them early on when you're defining the rules, so that they can help you define them, and they can be brought in the process and understand the distinctions and why they matter. The roll call is a drill that's actually just very useful for kind of categorizing different types of people in your organization and who can be helpful and not helpful, as is agents of change. Gives and gets is a drill for looking at what are the trade-offs. What do I get for participating? What am I going to be expected to give? Super 7 is introducing that decision-making criteria, and the next rules drill itself is a drill that's useful for defining the operating principles or the underlying rule set. So let's go ahead. I'm going to, under next governor, I'm going to just create a new chat. What pains and problems are those drills good for? So it's saying, building a board, it's going to tell me what those are good for, what the problems are that it solves, make a case, and roll call, just as I was kind of outlining. So when you get into the tool, you can get familiar with some of the underlying drills that were used to train it. And if we want to, let's go ahead and go back to a new chat there. Let's see if, oh, it's still building, sorry. So it's giving me overall sort of what overall problems addressed by the framework. unclear roles and responsibilities, risk and uncertainty and innovation, governance challenges, stakeholder resistance, innovation, execution, mismanagement. So if you're dealing with any of these, this tool will be helpful for you in terms of exploring them and getting some coaching and assistance and how you might resolve them, and practically some drills that you can actually use to do that work. So let's go back to the new chat. Okay, well, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. Now, my ChatGPT. Okay, here we go. So can you help define the now and next rules for organization, or how can we align our operations with future innovation? So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and it's going to say, it's going to give me, again, some coaching for that. So defining strategic goals for innovation, establish a clear innovation vision, balance your now and next operations, understand the relationship between the two, look for opportunities for cross-functional collaboration. It's giving me a next step of saying run the roll call drill to identify some of those folks. Here, the next step was the next rules drill, looking what are some of the anchors that are hindering innovation and creating your next rules, and so on. So it's pointing me to how I might use some of these underlying drills. Now, you don't actually have to see, dirty little secret. At some point, all of these GPTs will live inside of our lab. Right now, we're building them outside of the lab. So you're going to have access, if you have a ChatGPT account, you'll have access to these GPTs and can play with them. For us, as we're building this product, ideally you would be doing it inside the lab. It would all be contained, all that information associated with an innovation opportunity or establishing your innovation system would all live in one place. For now, it will be externally. If you want to understand one of these drills better, you can just say, show me the next rules drill. And it's going to now go into that drill. Here are the steps, right? Identifying the anchors, what are the anchors, the hindrances, identifying rockets, enablers, that would help with that. Some of the questions to ask as you're running the drill. So if you're facilitating this with a team, articulating your rules, your now rules. So what are the rules that govern the existing organization? Articulating your next rules. What are the questions that you would ask? So this is going to, from this GPT, it will just walk you through basically how to run this drill with a team, whether you're doing that live in a room or setting up a Miro board or something like that. Ultimately, these will be living inside of the our next lab and next system products. And then it's actually giving us some AI prompts for further assistance. So I love it when AI is helping me by giving me prompts to how to prompt it to help it further. All right. So that's a little look at this. Chris, can you, I don't know, I already asked if anybody has a challenge or okay. Chris is going to put something in the chat. If one of you has a now rule, a performance system rule, an existing rule or policy that you feel is hindering innovation in your organization, I'd love to get that as an example. If you could give me that as an example, and also maybe tell me a little bit about your what the industry is that you're operating in, that would be good, because as we know, our AI loves to have a little bit of context. Okay. So
I'm giving you some input as phrases that maybe you can get when you're trying to propose something that's remotely out of the performance plan. So maybe these different phrases can get you inspired to think of a situation you might be experiencing in your organization in which the operation principles that are set by the board or by leadership or by the culture itself stop you from actually making a change or trying something new or inventing what's next.
yeah, you could also think about it, just what Chris said, just think about that within functions. So is there something within legal or something within marketing or something within manufacturing or something within HR that is inhibiting you. That those are when we do the next rules, when we run the next rules, we actually ask an organization to say, what are all of the crucial functions in your organization for innovation and for what's next? If you're working on a new venture or a new policy or a new process, a new partnership, what are the functions that are important? What are the now rules that are inhibiting you? And then we develop the next rules from there.
So Marty, hello Marty.
Great.
You put in a new market entry and new product introduction have challenges of now versus next. And then you do NME versus NPI. Can you please give us context? Marty?
Second. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can.
Okay.
We can see you and we can hear you.
Here you go. Can you hear me now? So, most organizations, there are limits in every organization, and product marketing and product development have come up with something that they believe either they already have it and they want to take it into a new market, in which case that's going to take resources, it'll affect processes, it'll affect performance markers, meaning what you expect the thing to do in a new market is going to be quite different than what you expect an existing product to do in a market currently being served, or
Right.
your dominant market against which everything's benchmarked. So that's where there's always a conversation about, well, where are we going to get the resources? How are we going to do it? So process, conversation, performance, resourcing, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. That's one scenario where this is current. This goes on every day in many organizations, certainly in commercial organizations, it goes on all the time. And then new product introduction is we've invented a new widget. I don't care what the process was at this point, but there's a new widget coming down the pipeline, coming down the pike, as the expression goes. So again, who's going to sell it? If you keep using the example of you have a now process, you have a now sales force, they sell the stuff that you have. Who's going to sell it? Who's going to introduce this new product? Where the resources are going to come from? Who's going to provide oversight to those resources? So new product introduction is the death of many a very good, we'll say, professional in their discipline, but very few new products actually make it. So this is not something in the future. This is a current problem of introducing new products. And then if you combine the two, new products into new markets, it gets even more squirrely. Yes, you don't want to be in the magic chair unless you have a magic mandate, and you typically don't. It's go get her done, or we'll fire you. We don't care how hard you work or how much you try. But this is a current scenario or set of challenges that, well, we'll just say affect many a commercial organization. And of course, in the with the speed of innovation or of even copying and cloning near enough products, it creates issues of, resourcing, resource allocation, and many a direct salesperson and channel partner, they don't want to go near the new stuff. They go, well, you know what, we can make this input goes here, we sell this stuff, we make this much margin, and we can more or less predict or count on. They have a certain level of reliability in what they're doing. New products, they will make channel partners, including your direct salespeople, generally don't want to do it because they can't make quota that way without redoing their contracts, or basically all risk to the seller whether it's an external or an internal agent. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in new product introduction that is way beyond, is not transparent to the market or the organization. I'll leave it there.
That's super helpful, Marty. I captured some of that and put it into a prompt here, sort of a prompt about implicit and explicit policies governing the now system versus the next system. For this situation, product marketing and product development have something that they want to take to a new market. It will take new resources and new processes. I put in your original comment in the chat. We have invented a new product. Who's going to sell it? Will it disrupt our existing business? Who will support it? New product introduction often fails. Existing salespeople and channel partners don't want to go near the new stuff. They want to stick with the known rather than new. New products into new markets gets even more difficult. And then so please suggest a rule and operating principle that acts as a rocket rather than an anchor for innovators. Please provide a now rule and operating principle and a next rule and operating principle. So I'm going to ask it for sort of what do we infer is the existing rule and what do we think might be the new rule? So we'll go ahead and it'll use what we've trained it on to come up with this, okay? So now rule, sales and channel partners must prioritize a balanced portfolio approach, maintaining focus on core products while actively participating in new product evaluation and pilot sales initiatives. The operating principle, current sales force and channel partners should dedicate a small defined portion of their time to new products and pilots, incentivized by clear KPIs. This ensures they stay invested in established business while remaining engaged with innovation. So that's how do we get the working in concert, the now and the next working together. And then the next rule, new products entering new markets will have dedicated cross-functional teams, including sales, marketing, and support, who are isolated from the performance metrics of the existing business, tasked with experimenting, learning, and iterating. The operating principle here, these dedicated teams operate with separate goals from the now system where success is measured by learning milestones rather than immediate revenue. Empowered to make rapid adjustments, leveraging customer feedback and market data to refine both product and go-to-market strategy. Their work must be agile and iterative, emphasizing knowledge gain and rapid prototyping. So this is an example just of, first time, just putting in some notes from the conversation, just saying, all right, now we could actually have clearly stated a rule and an operating principle for those people who are working in the now side of the organization and those who are working on next, and we can start to see how incentives and so on might flow, right? So in this approach, the now rule keeps the core business steady but connected to innovation. Next rule empowers a separate innovation-driven team to experiment without being hampered by expectations or pressures of the current business model. Right?
Yeah. So here's, I was going to add one thing, although it may not fit into any of this. It's an old aphorism, but basic or operating principle. I don't know if it's an operating principle, but it goes along the lines of success knows 1,000 fathers, and failure is but an orphan.
Yeah.
Okay, so behind all of that stuff, you can look at that one line and understand how, or get a sense of how people behave.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I'll leave it.
That's great. I love the quote. And I think that it's also very consistent with the fact that people behave the way that they're incentivized to behave, right? and rules and policies and operating principles are part of an incentive structure. I mean, there are explicit incentives in terms of how people get paid or rewarded or recognized. And then there are the rule set. I like to think of the rule set as everybody here on the call, I'm sure, has played a board game before, right? Where you get a board game. The first thing you do with a board game, you take the lid off the box, you flip the lid upside down, and you read the rules. Because you got to figure out, I mean, you look at the pieces and you try to think, maybe I can play without reading the rules, because we all want to skip the hard work of doing the research. So we try to jump into it. But in fact, when we look inside that box, we can see, oh, there's a set of rules that explain how we're going to play this game. Well, if I'm an innovator and I lift the box up and I flip the lid over and all the rules are for the now game, that's problematic, right? That's super problematic. So if I'm an innovator and I've got the game of innovation and I flip the lid open and now finally I've got a set of clear rules that say, hey, this is how the game is played. And let's say I'm a compliance person. So just true confessions for those of you who don't know this about me. I at one point was responsible for brand for an organization called Wells Fargo and Nico Investment Advisors that was acquired by Barclays. I ended up working on the global brand for Barclays. So I was responsible for enforcing a whole bunch of rules and regulations around the Barclays brand. At the same time, I was working on a startup team that was building a new business that would operate under a different name, quite intentionally, because it needed to win some customers that Barclays had lost. So at my day job, I had to operate under one rule set and enforce those rules. And at another, I had to operate under an entirely different rule set. As a brand compliance person, it would be really helpful to just know what are the two sets of rules, right? Because I'll enforce both of them. If you only give me one set of rules, that's what I'm going to enforce. And this is the problem that most innovation teams and organizations confront, which is nobody spent the time to articulate what those rules are. And I wonder what the axiom would be. Success knows 1,000 fathers. Failure, failure is our best teacher, right? So maybe success knows 1,000 fathers. Failure knows, failure knows 1,000 students. How do you shift it so that people say, "Hey, actually, getting something wrong is a learning opportunity. If we fail to learn from it, we failed. If we learn from it, then we've actually progressed." So thinking about what is that, I love the idea of adding axioms into operating principles as well as rules. Like, so what are those things that inform our mindset as an organization? Thanks for the example, Marty. That was really helpful. I just wanted to be able to demonstrate on a live case so that folks could see sort of how this particular tool works. Are there other questions? Terry, what is the value of having this information as AI rather than a white paper or short searchable book? Well, I think of it this way. We can all go to the store and buy a book on, I do some long distance running. So I could go to, in fact, I have on my bookshelf a number of books on marathoning that I've never read. I did the research. I saw like how many stars they had on Amazon and how they scored on Runner's World, and I bought the best books on marathon reading. The best teacher for me in running is a coach. It's a trainer. It's somebody who understands running and understands long distance running and understands the regimen and who can meet me where I'm at the moment and be helpful to me at the moment. So I think the reason why it's helpful to have this in something like a GPT is that it's an on-demand coach, right? It says, "Hey, I'm dealing with this problem at this moment. I'm going to ask you a question and I'm going to get some guidance. And is it the absolute only answer? No. What it's going to do is it's going to bring me into a realm of exploration and research and thinking that is going to be helpful for me to progress in this particular area." So what we're looking for is seeing as we take these innovation journeys, there are critical moments that have some real pain and tension and problems associated with them. There are some very specific jobs to be done, and there's some coaching that can be made available to us. And it's a coach who has access to a universe of knowledge, as AI does, and who can apply a structured way of looking at that and can be trained to deliver what I'm looking for is super helpful. So I wouldn't discourage you from going out and buying books or reading white papers. But I think that on the fly, as you're doing the work, being able to grab a tool that I can provide some context and it can help focus me is super powerful.
Yes, here I'd like to mention or like share with you a conversation that we've had recently about AI enabled or an AI guided or assisted tools. So as the AI world decided to explode months ago and everything has to do with AI lately, we are very used to hearing, seeing, reading things that say that or offers or services or products that say that are AI enabled. One of the things that we have decided as a company and that we identify and understand that it's very important in that certain language is that our tools are not AI enabled. Our tools are AI assisted or AI guided. What's the difference here is that it's you as a leader or it's you as an innovator who is driving or enabling the process. And it's the tool, as what Greg is rightfully saying so, guiding you or coaching you through the process. So it's helping you go faster, helping you be more accurate, more efficient, more, it helps you open your mind or get you places that you would otherwise take a very much longer time to do so. But in the end, it's also your process. It's not the AI who's enabling you to do it. So I think there's a beautiful difference there. And that's why also maybe this is the big benefit of having an AI tool at your service instead of a book or something you can or just Google to like look or search for. And it is like, this is gonna adapt to your particular case, and this is gonna adapt in this particular case of the GPT to your particular job to be done or pain or problem. So yeah, I wanted to share that with you because for me it was eye-opening to decide that our tools are not AI enabled or AI assisted, and the difference behind it.
I'm gonna go ahead, Santiago, put in some information in a chat. I'm gonna just go ahead and put his whole statement into the next governor and see what the next governor tells us. Okay, so this statement that Santiago put in the chat. Doing innovation consultancy for a logistics company, they want to create new ventures, but need help managing the incentives and metrics to measure the success of potential new ventures. They ask for too many approvals and procedures for the new initiatives. They also need help with the uncertainty of new ventures. They keep asking for ROI too soon. There might be a lack of knowledge of how to run new initiatives within, or how to have a well-designed method to do so. Is it a lack of vision or capabilities? There's a need for more resources to coach them better. What do they have to achieve first to be able to manage the next system and new system? Now system, I think it says. They are starting to feel the need of a next system, although they haven't articulated one. So I'm gonna go ahead and just gonna make that one change. I think this is for their new initiatives, and then okay, and a now system here. Okay, let me just change that to now there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in, see what the navigator tells us. So help them frame and understand the next system will look like, use the next rules drill. So that's what's the now, that gives you that sort of, it's applying it's like the deflection point anchors and rockets drill, but it's specifically for identifying these rules. What's the current state for the now? What's the aspirational future state? Why do those rules exist in now? How might they inhibit us? What could we do to actually enable our innovators? Clarify the strategic need, discuss your next system characteristics. You might want to get into some of the different roles and how they played. So that's the rules drill there. Defining the rules, shift from ROI to affordable loss. So that's the Super 7 drill, and thinking about what are the criteria that we're trying to achieve? What's the small bet that we need to make to get to the next level of certainty? So shifting from what we say ROI to learning from investment. Emphasize learning over profit. Introduce the small bet concept of we're testing assumptions to move through a discovery-driven development process, and we need rules for that. Reducing the bureaucracy, so establishing a next board rather than having the old decision-making body in place, establish a new decision-making body for the next innovation, empower that board and streamline the approval process. Start to identify what the innovation metrics are that you want to use. So here we have learning milestones, customer validation, pivot or persevere decisions. So does something move forward or not? Get to role clarity, invest in building capabilities in the organization, manage resources. And there is actually a set of GPTs for doing that. And then a coaching process. So engage your leadership, define roles, set metrics, launch small experiments. So there's some coaching for you on that, Santi.
Yeah, looks good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So Jen, I know we're down, Chrissy, we're down to 5 minutes. I was gonna, go ahead. I'm gonna hand it back to you.
I always have to be the annoying time manager, but I do want to respect the time of our participants. So we have 4 minutes left. As we do that, if you have any further questions or if you want to have any further comments while we're connected, please make it so we can enjoy our last minutes together. In the meantime, I am going to do a shameless plug. G, can you please share your screen to the last slide?
For sure.
So I can tell you guys that we have recently launched a podcast in which we have, Greg and Daniel, Greg, our CEO, Daniel, our COO, have very interesting discussions and conversations regarding an intelligent innovation system, the next cycle, and the next system, in which they very casually have conversation around the pains, problems, and jobs to be done that have to do with making innovation work in your organizations. So if you're interested, please follow us. We encourage you to listen to episode number 4 that speaks about the Fantastic Five and some of the topics that we have talked about today. And to be on, follow us on our journey of sharing more content around this. We have a profile on Substack. We are sharing articles on LinkedIn, and we're constantly encouraging you guys to join our conversation on how to build intelligent innovation systems so organizations can actually ensure that innovation not only works, but that deliver impactful value, not only for companies, but for our world. So thank you for joining us.
Anybody share the link to the governor?
Oh, yes. I will be sharing 2 important links on chat. The first one is a survey that I'm going to be sending you if you want to be part of our beta testers, or if you want to be part of our, let's say, inner circle of conversation when it comes to developing product, developing tech. So this is the first link I'm going to send you. And the second link I'm going to send you has to do with the GPT that I will send it to you right now. Do you have it off at hand?
So again, if you have a ChatGPT account, you will be able to access this GPT and play around with it. You also, if you search other GPTs, you'll see that it's authored, but this one was authored by Nikolai Galley. That's me. I've just built these GPTs. We've been building them on my account. So if you search on in Explore GPTs, if you search on Nikolai Galley, you'll see a full roster of GPTs that we've been developing and are continuing to develop and refine. So
you will receive in your email the recording of this conversation, the useful links to our podcast, to the GPT, to Substack, and so know that you're going to be also receiving that from us. And we hope to see you again in an upcoming conversation. This is something we're doing on a monthly basis. It has been super interesting to have these conversations with you, and we wish to see you again the next time.